raising sons as a feminist is really, really important. I remember raising my children, my boys, thinking there are women alive, girls alive at this moment who are going to love and be loved by my sons. And I need to make sure that I hand on to those women that I have not yet met, feminist men who understand what it is to be a woman, who understand the injustices and who take responsibility for that.
Welcome back to another episode of The Tea with Nicky. We are pro-tea, not anti-coffee, but as I've been saying, if you have a glass of wine or a quarantini, that's fine as well. Please do enjoy this in the background as a podcast, but switch over when it is the challenges, as I do find them very entertaining myself. Today I'm speaking with Kate Nicholls, who's the author of Under the Camelthorn Tree. This was so incredible, and I don't usually get starstruck, but leading up to it I was so nervous in what I could actually speak to her about, because the amount that she's managed to accomplish and the way she writes is just incredibly inspiring. Her book is available at Exclusive Books, online, on Amazon, on Kindle, on Audible. She reads it as well. She is extremely positive but realistic at the same time. She addresses uncomfortable situations and has this innate ability to have comfortable conversations about uncomfortable topics. So we speak about her book, we speak about her homeschooling, we have a bit of fun as well where we play a bit of Pictionary. I hope that you enjoy listening and watching her as much as I enjoyed speaking with her.
Hello, my darling.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you, sweetheart?
I'm good, thanks. I'm just in such awe. I feel like I've been so nervous the whole weekend to speak to you after reading your book. I'm just like, oh my God.
Oh my darling. Oh my God. That is the sweetest thing. There's absolutely nothing to be nervous about at all. That's so sweet.
I just have to ask, you opened up a Time Atlas book. You opened up on the correct page, the African continent page, and decided to drop a finger. And second try, you got Botswana, but why Africa, the continent, to start with?
I think, it sounds very sort of simplistic, but I think it was because it is the cradle of humankind. And let's go right back to I was passionate about evolutionary biology. It just seemed that the natural place to go.
Were quite a prominent figure at WAR, so War Against Rape.
Yeah.
And you shared your story in 1998 when you were doing an HIV/AIDS work with a woman, and you opened up and shared about your own sexual abuse experience. And saying the importance of sharing your story. So is this kind of what led you to write?
I 100%, and that was such a fantastic question. When I saw that question, I was really happy. And you know something, Nicky? You are the first reader that has picked that out, because I dropped it in quite subtly. I refer to it a little bit subtly throughout the book, but I don't focus on it because that wasn't the theme, that wasn't the focus of the book. I think it's terribly important, and it's terribly important with children that we listen and that we believe. It's really, really important.
Because I saw it was such a prolific moment in the book where you opened up and you said it's important, and then the other younger woman started standing up and opening up about it.
Yes. I remember sitting under a tree one particular day with a small group of women, and we were talking, and I shared what had happened to me as a child, and there was the look on one particular woman's face was, I will never forget it. It wasn't relief. It was, I don't know what it was. It was, and she cried, and it was almost like her tears were rusty. Do you know what I mean? She had not cried for so long, And we sat under this tree, and then we just all cried together. And it was really, really powerful. And what I tried, and I would always, when I went into villages, go and speak to the chief's wife. Obviously the chief first, because but the chief's wife, and get her permission, and so that there was somewhere that people could go. You know, when we left the village, that there was a focus that the women could go, and we would go to the local. We would also go to the local clinic afterwards, and so there was always backup. They would say, when we go, yes, you can ring us, but we were, you know, hundreds of miles away. But, you know, there's the local clinic, we've been there, and you can go to the chief's wife, and obviously to the police, blah, blah, blah. So the sharing of stories was really, really, really important. And the Postal Letter for Justice Day was an extraordinary thing, because these were women who could share. Yeah. And they, you know, your listeners may not know about that, but we wanted to enable women to speak out, and the chief of the whole country was the president, and to enable them to speak out anonymously, so they weren't afraid, just so that the men who were in charge, and they were good men, my goodness. The chief of police, oh, what a hero this man was. There was a huge amount of interest, particularly because of the HIV problem. So rape and, you know, this was a very big deal. This was the health of the nation, as well as the mental health of these individuals. Yeah. And so they wrote their stories to the president, and they were all posted on the same day. So the women would take the letters to the local clinic or to the local tin shop, and we had an arrangement that they would then all be posted on the same day. So there was this massive amount of mail that arrived. Literally, apparently, we were told that it blocked the hallway. And the response was immediate. It was extraordinary. My respect for how the Botswana government responded to the HIV crisis, it knows no bounds. And in a very short space of time, action was taken, which is a big deal, a very big.
I think as well they could look at you as sort of a hopeful beacon, because it was happened in your past, but you and you're helping others. So
that's right. So that was many years before. I read a book by Alice Miller called The Roots of Violence in Child Rearing, and it genuinely was life-changing. There are some books in my life which have had such a visceral, physical impact on me. It's not like, oh yes, there's a few good ideas there. This is central. I've got to pay attention, and I've got to really follow this. And she was an extraordinary woman. She was a Swiss psychoanalyst, Freudian psychoanalyst, who, blessed woman, threw that all away and said, this is absolute nonsense. I've got to start believing these people who tell me about the abuse that they experienced as a child, instead of talking about Oedipal complexes and Electra complexes and God knows what. Ridiculous. And she wrote an article in Bridget, which was a sort of the equivalent of Marie Claire in Germany in the 1960s, I think, maybe early 70s, can't remember, about sexual abuse in childhood. And the flood of, the same thing happened to her as happened to the president. It's just like, whoa. Really, it's the business of sharing your story. The minute you share your story, other people come out, because they are trapped by shame or fear or guilt. And the minute you open that door to somebody by saying, this has happened to me, and I'm okay now, or you don't have to be okay to say this has happened to me. You can also say this has happened to me and I'm broken. Tell the truth. And we are, as women, we are very uncomfortable about sharing when we feel that we have failed as a parent. And I think it's particularly difficult nowadays, when all you've got to do is to go on Instagram and somebody's done some amazing, I don't know, birthday cake for their child, or taken their child on a trip, or has, I don't know what, you know what I mean? We're always comparing. And I thought it's really, really important. And I wanted the reader to get to know the family, in its full health, so that they understood what happened when I started to fragment, and when the family started to fragment, and the way that the children were so profoundly, I mean, they were without a question of a doubt the driving energy of my healing. There's no question of that. And then she wrote extraordinary Breaking Down the Walls of Silence. I think that was that was the guiding force for me in Botswana, because the wall of silence is what has held us back. We don't share, we don't tell.
Yeah.
And that time, you know, I told there were so many stories I could have told, and I was very careful about just pulling out a few. One, because they're not my stories. Really important, you can't tell other people's stories. And it's all about silence. If we keep silent, we will never get better. And that's why I wanted to be very open and not silent, not just about what had happened to me, but about what happened to me afterwards and how it impacted on my capacity to be a parent. You know, there's that very, very difficult line in the book, you know, don't make me be a mother. I can't be a mother because I couldn't be a woman, couldn't be a person. And it's really important that we share these bits of our stories, because other people then come out and go, yeah, I didn't like to say, because I felt embarrassed. And I think it is the most powerful thing. I think we learn through story anyway, whatever it is, whether you're learning about history, biology, maths, whatever, you need the story. We are storytellers. That's who we are as human beings. And our stories are small. They don't have to be big events. They don't have to be great, you don't have to have climbed Mount Everest to have an interesting story. It's how we deal with the little bits of our life, I think, that's really, really important.
And I mean, I think through your post-traumatic stress, you definitely carried your Alice Miller's influence with you, because you eventually pulled yourself out of it as well. And afterwards, then I see the way that you are now, and having engaged with you before, you carry that through with you. You're mindful about what you say and what you share and how that impacts other people as well. But also, you're very positive. You always find the lesson in sort of everything. Is that also to do with Alice Miller?
No, I think I'm quite a positive person. I think that's probably to do with my mum, who is very positive. And she is, she was definitely a glass half full person, and so am I. I'm realistic. I'm not sentimental, and I recognise when there are things that have gone so wrong that there's, I don't pretend that everything is all right. I'm very honest, and I think that's really important. So if the things are going badly, my children knew about it. If we didn't have any money, they, you know, I didn't pretend. Whatever was happening, nothing was swept under the table. And sometimes one of my kids, Travis, at one point said, "Oh, Mom, why? You know, thanks for sharing. You're sharing too much." But later, years later, he went, "You know, Mom, I'm so glad that you did that," because what he was then discovering was how, with families who have this veneer of perfection, and nothing is perfect, nothing. The minute you strip that veneer away and the imperfections are exposed, if they're exposed later, then I think children feel bewildered and puzzled and can even feel betrayed. I think it's much better if everybody knows what's going on in an upfront way. So it's not a question of being positive and saying, "Oh, everything's marvelous." Saying, "No, this is awful, but this is how it is."
Yeah. And I know you even criticized yourself in the book by saying that you've been told you have unconventional parenting methods, and you also have unconventional homeschooling methods, which I know you've been inspired by so many books, and your homeschooling methods was not inspired by Little Men. But you're also a very creative person, as you were an actress before you moved to Botswana. So when structuring your lesson plans, did you just let your creativity flow and think, how would I like to be taught? Or, you know, building mountains or making paper out of elephants?
Yeah, I think initially, very much so. Because remember the first, when we started, I didn't know that it was going to go on. It was an experiment. Things weren't going terribly well for them at school. And they were losing confidence, and I thought, let's try this, isn't it? Certainly Little Men, and certainly Richard Dawkins, because what he introduced me to, which is really important, was the blend between science and the arts and the humanities. Because when I was a kid, you went to the chemistry lab, and then you did your physics in another lab, and then you went to another room to do history. It was literally geographically separated. It wasn't just in terms of intent, it was a physical separation. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s that I realized that was nonsense, that was a false construct. So I wanted my kids to, whatever I was teaching them, I wanted them to meet the person. Like if we were learning about, if you're learning about gravity, then meet Newton. If you're learning about, Galileo and looking up and seeing the mountains of the moon for the first time, learn about him as a person. Just picture what it must have been like for him to be in that cathedral in Pisa, watching that pendulum, and then saying to the kids, "And how do you think? How did he time it?" Never dumbing down, never assuming that kids can't grasp things. And for every term, I had a theme. So there was it might be water. It could be, remember one theme, which was madness, which was a really interesting one. And we did King Lear for our play. And then we looked at Geoffrey Masson's work, and we looked at how mad people who were didn't fit into society in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, 1900s were considered mad, and we looked at the politicization of that, and so that was really interesting. And then incorporate them looking at neurology, so the science of it, so that you got that, which was really interesting. I did have a little bit of trouble integrating maths, but I found a way. So we looked at data collection and statistics, and then we just looked at how some people who have a big idea are very often perceived as barking, so. And that was a big discipline for me, to make sure that I covered all the curriculum, but that they knew why they were doing it. and they knew so they left. When they left school, they had a really integrated sense, and this is where I'm very critical of education systems, and I work in them. I have to. I'm preparing kids for exams and getting them into schools and into university, and so I have to. I know the system.
It's easy to feel stuck now during this lockdown, and so you've spoken about your post-traumatic stress, where you've also felt sort of in a state of feeling stuck and you had to pull yourself.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to someone who is feeling stuck? Sort of it's tough to say because people are all different, but what sort of tips would you suggest, sort of from an author perspective, if you're writing or working on a business, how have you pulled yourself from being unstuck? And then also with writing, I think the thing to do is just to write every day. Even if what you're writing is appalling, you're going to learn from it. So but while the lockdown was on, I didn't write at all. It's the first time I haven't written for a very, very, very long time. And that was, I think it was a recognition that I couldn't. There was a sort of fuzz going on. There was a very, very deep subliminal fear because nobody wants to get this disease. Yeah. There was a deep fear of, I've got family all over. I've got, children and grandchildren in the UK. I've got a son and a daughter-in-law who is expecting my fourth grandchild in America. I was terrified. Maisie was with me, which was amazing. Just by chance, she was here. So we locked down together, which was really, really precious experience. But with work being unstuck, I'm lucky with my work because I don't get stuck because every new student is fresh. Yeah. So I can't get stuck because a new kid comes along and I've got to learn that child and think about what they need and devise a course specifically for them. Because I don't have online courses, this is what I do. I create bespoke courses for each child. So I don't get stuck. What I've noticed was quite prominent in your book as well is that you're quite a strong feminist, which is amazing. I love it. I hold it dear to my heart. So I wanted to open the question and ask you, what does feminine leadership mean to you?
Well, politically, I'm in big trouble because we've had 2 female prime ministers in my country, and they are not, neither of them were Jacinda. I think really careful here because I'm a hardcore feminist, and I have been for, since I was about 15. Remember, I'm 66, so I was a teenager during the 60s, and there's sort of that, that big wave of feminism profoundly impacted on me. And I was born in 1954. During a period of extreme female oppression. And my beloved mum, who I adored, was not a feminist. And it created some serious problems. So I had to learn about feminism and through the media, through books, through songs, through talking, through looking at the paper. Raising sons as a feminist is really, really important. I remember raising my children, my boys, thinking there are women alive, girls alive at this moment who are going to love and be loved by my sons. And I need to make sure that I hand on to those women that I have not yet met, feminist men who understand what it is to be a woman, who understand the injustices and who take responsibility for that. And I am so proud of my boys. Now they are, they're good Lord, they were raised in the African bush. They're big, strong, tough, there's nothing, but my God, that every one of them are feminists. So I think feminine leadership, I think we all need to be working together. I think that just because, I don't think somebody should get a job just because they're a woman. I think they should get a job because they're good at it. I think that what I have zero tolerance for are men who oppress women, and I think that it is the responsibility of men now to make the change. I really do. We need the feminist men, and being a feminist man makes you a very strong and attractive human being, because women now are not interested unless, really? Of course not. You want to have a man who knows that you are equal, and that, in terms of my work, I want to get paid the same money. In terms of my respect, I want to get paid. But I am a woman, and I am different to a man. And I love being a woman. My femaleness is incredibly important to me, in the same way that their maleness is important to my sons, but not to the exclusion. So, a lot of, I get quite upset when some women go, oh, well, I'm not a feminist because, I don't want to wander around in dungarees and what?
And I shave and yeah.
What? Darling, I go to bed alone, and I always wear scent to go to bed. Always. I cannot go to sleep unless I've sprayed myself with scent. That's for me, It's important. These are being a girl. I love all those girly things. I celebrate that. But my feminism is a deeply. It's not an external thing. It's a way of being. And I think it's really, really, really important. And that's why I think that, I worry about backlashes. We had a big backlash in the 1980s. I fear a backlash to the wonderful Me Too movement. And we need men to stand now, side by side, because we have, what's going on in America is dangerous for women. It's dangerous. We cannot allow it. And, what happened to me has not made me hate men. And the responsibility that boys have, and I give talks about this, it's really important. No means no.
Yeah. And
you can change your mind. And I've been in relationships, happy relationships with the really successful, happy sex lives, and for one reason or another, one night I haven't wanted to make love. And I'm allowed to say no. We're allowed to do that because it's a different, it is very shocking. It was very, very profoundly shocking to me how it broke me. And it took away my choice, and it took away my control at a fundamental level that shocked me to my core. And it made me realize, there is something very, very, very profound about entering somebody's body. Yeah. It's a very, very, and it has to be, it has to be consensual. And I don't care. These are rules that we need to lay down early on with our boys. It's not about, oh, girls, don't go out wearing short skirts. It's nothing to do with telling our daughters what they mustn't do. It's telling our sons what they mustn't do. That's the responsibility. Really, really, really. Because they are the perpetrators. Sorry for that, but they are. So we need them to know. And it doesn't matter if you're, if you're pissed or whatever, you've still got a brain. You can still tell what's right and wrong. It's really, really important, and we need to be teaching this. We need to be teaching this to our children, and we need to be teaching this in sex education, and we need to be sharing this openly and freely.
Move on to our segment that I call the ABCs.
Yes.
So what was your amazing, affluent aha moment in your life journey?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I've had lots. But the ones that were really life-changing, I had one aha moment on stage when I was playing Kate in The Taming of the Shrew, and it was a matinee, a Wednesday matinee. And I was doing the curtain call, and I looked out at the audience, and there was lots of cheering and clapping and thank you very much. And I thought that not one of these people out there love me. And the people that do love me are 60 miles away at home. I would be better to spend my time with them. That was an aha moment.
That brings us to B. Was like a bad business blunder or just a bad moment for you, a failure moment that you think really translate into most aspects of your life?
I think there've been lots of moments. I am not a businesswoman. I have my business is just me. I don't have a secretary. I don't have the mistakes that I make sometimes are taking on more than I can do. And it matters because you've got to build trust with a child, and you've got to be able to really think fast and go, okay, this was my plan, it's not working, what can I do next? You've got to be able to turn on a sixpence.
And then C, so our comical cinema-worthy cock-up moment.
Oh, darling, that's just so many, I can't even tell you. My worst, cinematically, that's very interesting that you said cinematically. I do have one, and I look a total moron. I went to pick up, this is when we were running the line research, and I went to pick up some veterinary students who were studying at one of the universities in California. So these young kids, they were at university, but young, arriving in Africa for the first time. Picked them up from the airport. They were adorable. Bundled them into the car. Drove to the supermarket that I always drive to. Parked in the spot that I always drive in, and drove straight down a 6-foot hole which had recently been dug there. So, darling, I'd got these brand new students. I'd literally known them for 2 seconds. All right, and we were like this. So I was going, don't worry, my darlings, it's all going to be fine. Poor little things, their first time ever in Africa. So, okay, so I get that sorted out, and get help, and we get winched out, and blah, 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 go and do the shop. Great. And they've never seen a shop like it, because we're going into the bush for 3 weeks. So they didn't know about bush shopping and all the cooler bags and ice, and it's a mission. Anyway, got them in the back of the car, set off for the bush. Car breaks down. Okay, serious problem. These are, I've got to look after these kids, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, okay, I'm going to deal with this quickly. So I said, don't worry, stay here. I ran across the Malabo to a friend of mine, said, can I borrow your car? I've got a car full of students. Yes. So they think I'm a miracle worker, this woman. Runs into a field and comes back with a car. How does this work? They didn't know how things worked in mine. Brilliant. So off we go. Fantastic. Of course, on the way into the bush, have a puncture. So I'm there, changing the tire, and they are, gazing in wonder at me. I think, good God, they must have seen somebody changing a tire. But they're all and they say, oh, it's incredible, and you just didn't mind that elephant. And I went, what elephant? And I turned around, there was a bloody great elephant right behind me. I mean, so sweaty, I didn't. And so they thought I was an absolute hero. driving on. It's now dark, and the sun comes up again. And I'm going, this is cataclysmic. This is an apocalyptic moment. I have got other people's children in the car. This is going to be our last moment on earth. This is not good. And I was being very calm. I was thinking, how can I support these children through this? Because this is a monumental moment in human history. And they looked up and they said, oh, that is the most beautiful moon. I've never seen a moon like it. Thank God I didn't say anything, darling. I'd never seen a giant orange moon. I hadn't been in Botswana that long. I'd never seen one. Can you imagine if I had said anything to them? Well, they would have gone back to America. They would have thought they were in the hands of an idiot. So these are things that have happened to me that have caused me deep embarrassment. When I told my family, I mean, they have teased me about it forever and ever.
Thank you so much for sharing. And now that brings me to our challenge portion. So,
oh my gosh.
So inspired by your stories about how you custom your education program with each child, and then also in the first term where you didn't actually do any written assessments and you did it through verbal or
experiments and
spoke about rock paintings. Wanted this challenge to be sort of a Pictionary non-verbal communication where we're going to draw.
Oh my God.
And then we have to guess it.
You won't be able to, darling, but let's try. Oh, I've never played this. Oh, this is fun.
And
I must do this. Oh, okay, all right.
Then when the word comes up,
I've got a word.
Okay. Do you want to draw it then, and then I'll try and guess?
Yes. Okay. Oh, I hate this. Okay, darling. There you go. Now hold on a minute. I've now got to go back from the. How can you? I've lost you. There we go. So can you see that?
Is it?
You see?
Is it buttered toast? Is it?
Oh, you're so close. What is this?
Bread.
Yes.
Oh, is it bread?
Yes. I did it.
See, you did it. That was easy. You're not that bad. Okay, now. Oh wow. Okay, I've got a word. Let me try and draw it like on screen. Okay, so. This is so funny.
I can't really see because the lights. Okay. A skateboard.
Yes.
Yes. Good. Okay. Yes.
We nailed this. Do you want to do one more? Let's do.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm also very excited. I've never used this before. So okay. This one, even I can do this one. Okay. Here we go. But do you see what I'm saying, darling? It's not very mature.
Is it sleeping?
It's so close. What am I sleeping on?
Bed.
Oh, yeah, there you go. I said I elaborated it too much because I wasn't sure whether.
Okay, will be an interesting one.
I'm going to do this with my students. It's such fun.
I wouldn't even know. Let me. This is going to be so horrible. Whoever's going to see this is going to be like, well, she clearly can't draw. I don't know.
Oh, sweet! Oh, it's a duck. It's a swan. It's a duck. It's a duck on skates.
No, it's not a duck. Oh,
chicken.
I knew it. Yes.
Yes.
Duck on skates. It's a chicken. I was trying to get like the head.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
And the eggs. Where I like to close off the interviews just with 3 quick fire questions that you don't prepare for, just so it just comes to top of mind. Number 1, what is a quote that you live by?
Oh, definitely. Socrates, an unexamined life is not worth living.
Love that. And what is a daily ritual for you? What is something that you have to do every day? Or it's part of everyday routine.
Just without question, first thing in the morning, coffee and bread with olive oil, for sure.
That's so Italian of you. And final question, is Italy your last stop, or what's next on the cards?
Oh, good question. Can't answer that because I never know. I love Italy. I am so happy. I don't know. And that's what's the fun. That's the fun of it, isn't it? I don't know what's going to happen. Something may happen which whisks me off somewhere else. I definitely want to go back to South America. I definitely want to be in the Andes again.
Oh, I feel like I could talk for hours and hours and hours, but unfortunately I do have to end our interview now.
Bless you, my darling. Thank you. I've really enjoyed it, Nikki, and it's been so nice to meet you. It's a pleasure. And I hope to see you in Cape Town one day.
Yes, when you come down, we have to connect, and then we can have a face-to-face conversation and discussion.
I love it.
Looking forward to that.
You.
Well, there's just so much covered with Kate that it's so difficult to try and put in a little blurb summary of what we covered, but that it's important to share a story because it can help someone else without you realizing that it's all right to be stuck, it's good, and that to not put too much pressure on yourself, to allow yourself to follow your nose and what you feel is the right decision for you, and that we can consume knowledge and apply it to ourselves through every walk of life and every aspect, and there's a lesson in everything that we do. On the next Tea with Nikki, I sit down with Taylor Sutherland and we discuss her beginning stages of getting Boulevard Boutique off the ground, how she dealt with the legal processes, how they pivoted during COVID-19, and what she has coming up in October, November. It's definitely something you're not going to want to miss.